Yes, 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 yes. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Let me get this thing. I'm gonna post the share link in a couple places. Copy, close, Discord, Twitter. Okay, cool, cool. Let me make my face big. It's big face time. Time for the big face. Okay, so where is it? Media player, palettes. There we go. Okay. Hey, how's it going? Today, so something I like to do on lunch. I don't really know what there's not really a specific cadence for this, but it really seems to happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It tends to be the days that my kids are in school. So uh, yeah, at least with this kind of like weird schedule right now, they're back for kind of strange days and strange hours right now. Anyway, Tuesday and Thursday, that's when they're gone, and it's been like a really nice time to stream because the house is empty and it's great. Um, One of the things that I'm working on right now is just codifying some of the things that I think about into this little library called Colorway. And so that's what all these streams have been about, just kind of like taking little pieces of UI, rebuilding them in this tool. Now, one of the things that my brain, a problem that my brain has been on for like I don't know, a couple years now, is this notion of like how to map. Oh my gosh, I can see the preview in the corner of my eye and it's distracting. Is how to integrate all of the notions of color that we have, particularly neutral colors, in a UI, and how there's a real challenge because like UIs a lot of times have like layers of depth to them, and those layers get inverted in dark mode. And because of the way that color works and our perceptions of colors, the available contrast range in those color groups of light mode and dark mode, they they also invert. So you have a lot of bandwidth in the kind of like dark gray tones in a light color system, and a minimal amount of bandwidth in the dark gray, or sorry, uh light gray tones or white tones in a dark system, but then a lot of bandwidth in the kind of like subtle differences between the like middle and darkest points. So anyway, there's a lot of challenges there. It's a very multi-dimensional problem, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot. So we've tackled, at least so far, the notion of surfaces, and so we have like a little construct there, and we also have some headings and texts that are like being formed in like previous episodes. So I was thinking today I'd start to introduce a like palette so we can actually start like introducing different elements that have some type of natural hierarchy with the heading and text scales. Again, we're just kind of at this phase in the game, we're just kind of like throwing like a handful of pieces inside so that we can actually start building some of like the bigger constructs, because this isn't being built from the outside in with like a lot of existing UI. So I want to show you where a tool that I really like for color. So I'm going to go back to small head again, um, or appropriately sized head. um, and then kind of jump back into my tools here. Okay, so this is a tool that I really like, and it's actually recently been changed. So when I was on this site today, um, or like pulling this tool back up for a discussion today, colorbox.io is now a totally new site. I'm not totally sure how to use this tool yet, but it is worth knowing that it is, updated. And it looks like it kind of, it's under this person's name now, Kevin Arnott. Whereas I was introduced to it as a tool because Lyft Design was talking about it. There were a bunch of blog posts that were going all over the place at the time. So I am most familiar with this tool and kind of the way that it presents itself. However, this looks like this is on some random, like it looks like just a previous build of whatever it was at the time. So this is on some like kind of weird URL. So I'll have to learn this at some point. But today I'm going to use this just because it's what what I've used in the past. Now, one thing that I think is really cool about this tool is, let me hide this so I can see if you're saying anything. Okay. One thing that's really interesting about this tool is that it kind of breaks down your colors, especially like, in what we'll explore today, neutral tones, into a bunch of like much easier, like the smallest possible decisions that you'll have to make. And then it does its best to apply certain color theories and thoughts to these and then give you a visual representation of this. Now, the reason I'm using this one is because it does actually give you, like, plot these out, versus this one, which does not appear to yet. Maybe it has some additional tooling that I'm not seeing here. So that's the big thing. So the cool thing is you have these knobs. You can change how many steps you want. Like if you know in advance, like I'm going to need a lot of steps, or maybe I only want 4 steps or whatnot. At this point, I think 11 is a fairly usable amount. It gives you a little bit of depth up front. It gives you a little bit of depth on the bottom. But with that, not so many steps where you kind of have these arbitrary shifts in between. So yeah, so that's that. So that's the first decision. How many steps do you want? I like 11. I like to stick also with odd numbers because they have a like a natural center point. So if you need to think of like what the like absolute middle of your scale is, there is one, 2 ends and a middle, as opposed to even numbers where you'd have to. There's no fence sitting on even numbers. You got to choose 5 or 6, or does that work? Yeah, 4 or 5 if it's 0 based. So you can add some additional steps. Minor steps. Actually, I'm gonna have to come back to this. Now, hue. This is where you would actually set your color. Now, this is kind of interesting that you can change the hue of your scale. Like, so this is the start and then this is the end. I'm going to disregard this part of it for now. Hue is not interesting to me because I am going to turn saturation off for both of these. What I'm interested in is a purely neutral scale at this point. So you'll see that the visualization brought all of those down to a flat, like a flat curve. Because that's representing saturation. Okay, what if we can change this? Because I'd love to see lightness represented on a curve. That'd be pretty sweet. But right now we're just seeing the hard data for that lightness. So there is that. Now, what does rate do? Okay, so rate is going to be irrelevant for our purposes as well because it's a function of saturation. Okay. And this is one of the reasons that I like to start with these neutral tones, is because you can subset the amount of decisions that you have to make right off the bat. Now, a lot of times, UIs are, hinted towards a particular hue, and so you'd have to get in there. And I think that this does allow for some of that. Like if you wanted to have the start saturation be nothing, but then kind of tint that over time, you can start to get into that. Like if your UI was more blue or whatnot. So I'm going to take that out. Oh, cool. Okay, cool. So I just learned something. You can actually change the graph. You can click this view graph button, and then it'll change the kind of like what that chart represents. So you can see the tone curve for brightness, hue, saturation, etc. Okay, cool, cool, cool. So, now what do we have here? Now, this is the one that I'm going to work on because I want to work on, like, because we're doing neutrals, I want to get this brightness scale right. And what I'm looking for is like fairly distinct tones on this side so that there's not like a lot of overlap. We don't have a lot of room for a significant amount of overlap in 11. So we're just going to kind of roll with this. Let's start toggling these edges. Now, end, in my case, I want to represent the whole spectrum. So I'm going to have 0 be like, absolute on one end, and then um 100 be the absolute on the other end. Okay? So that seems fine. You could kind of reverse the polarity here, I guess. I think, let's see, we have saturation, brightness. Yeah. So this, I guess, might be for like a dark mode or something like that. I'm kind of, this looks more natural to me thinking about it, at least in this view from lightest to darkest. Obviously, these would invert to some degree on a dark palette. So let's play around with these. Now we have the extremes, right? So we have 0 and 100 here, but in that we can still change the relationship between numbers, and we'll see this curve adjust as we choose different values. So let's see. So we have a linear curve. Okay, so that looks and this is probably what some placeholder values might look like if you were just kind of cranking these out by hand. FFF, E6E, CCC, these are all like very familiar as like just kind of like hex values that are easy to remember. However, as we saw kind of in the last stream, there's also notions of being able to like relate these colors on a curve. And so what does that look like? Well, they have provided here a bunch of different tonal curves that you can kind of get a sense of, like they'll ease in or ease in out on a certain side. So this one's an ease in, which means that you're going to have a pretty stark range in the first 5, but then it's going to be very subtle after that. Here, I don't know if you can see it over my stupid head, but it's going to be very subtle on the back end. Now, ease out is going to be the opposite of that, like very extremely subtle color differences. Like I can, on this particular monitor, I can barely see the difference of these colors. And that's another thing to consider. There's a staggering amount of contrast lost on this display when I'm streaming. So keep that in mind as well. And then you're going to have something like an ease in and out. And so you can see what that means is like the center point is going to be exactly 50, but then these numbers are going to kind of ease in an interesting way. So, and then there's also like different like like arcs. So you could play with this all day, but like ease, let's see, let me do an ease in out for quad. Takes on a totally different shape than the notion of easing in and out in cubic. It looks like maybe I lost something here. It's not responding to me anymore. All right, refresh. Unfortunately, it lost our progress, which is a bummer, but pretty easy to recreate. We're going to take all that out, change the graph to this. We're going to go to, what is it, quad ease out, and then quad ease in out, and compare that to cubic ease in out. And you can see how just there's a little bit of a different relationship in these middle tones. I think that, so let's get this back to where we were. Let's see. For our purposes right now, I'm going to go with something that's just totally linear. Just because at the moment I can see like a pretty clear gradation between all of these, save for right here, which is really just a function of how bad this the color profile is on this monitor for streaming. Let's see. And then here you can actually lock a hex value, which is kind of interesting. So let's see. What if we wanted to lock 8A, 8A, 8A? So now it's locking this 8A, 8A, 8A value. And I think that this kind of bends to, you know, like if we did like D0, 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 yeah, that's right. So it'll lock to the nearest one. So whatever, it'll find whatever's closest to it. So like if you want to make sure that this exact tone is in there, it's going to like find whatever's closest to it, and it's going to lock that specific number. So super cool. We got that. And again, we're just going to go linear right now. No big deal. Okay, so what's the next step? So now we have our scale represented here. I'm going to get my head out of the way. We have our scale over here, and it's, you know, 0 through 100. I think these are just their kind of, you know, colloquialisms for those. We're not going to go with those. I really don't. I've never liked the notion of just like adding zeros here. It's always kind of a funny, like a silly little trick to pretend like you can insert values in between. You know, like 11, but like what would the difference between 11 and 15 mean in practical terms, and how would you review that, etc. So we're going to do this now. It doesn't give us. I prefer to do this in HSL values. I'm going to see if there's an option for that. Does not look like it. So we're going to go with hex for now, and then I can convert those to HSL values later. So copy that. Let's see, actually, maybe we can look it up. Hex to HSL. Now I have a bunch of notes in here. Let's see, linear, neutral, scale. I'm going to post all that stuff in there. Interested, this is not a format that I'm super familiar with. The B suffix and then the W suffix. If you're watching and you know what those are intended to imply, let me know. I'd be delighted to learn more about those. Okay, cool. So what do we find? Convert hex to HSL. Okay, perfect. So we can actually do this here. Okay, so we're gonna run that one, and I'm gonna relate these. Let's see, how are we gonna do this naming? I'm actually gonna invert that scale real quick. So this is what we had. I'm gonna just flip the polarity of that so that we can get these in an order that I actually feel more comfortable with. So we're gonna copy that and now paste that in. And so now we have 0 being our black point, which is the foreground color. Okay, 0, 0, 0. We get black, which is HSL 0, 0, 0. Now I'm renaming these because they're using 5 here, but I actually want this to be 1. Now, one of the things that I like about incremental numbers is that numbering things incrementally naturally aligns to some of the things that, oh, hold on, let me get my face back on here. Okay, so if you use incremental numbers and you're able to kind of like divorce them from like a, you know, a mapping to a literal concept, but just kind of like, you know, on as points or steps on a scale. One thing that's nice about this is that in JavaScript, TypeScript, like code environment, you know, this This maps to arrays, so like the positioning of an array. So you know the first position, the second position, etc. So one thing I like about this, I guess that's like ordinal naming, is that we can put these in arrays and then actually kind of infer things about them in code, if we were to use them in a code environment and not strictly a CSS environment. So something to think about. Let's see. I think I accidentally deleted though. Nope, I didn't. OD, OD, OD. So that's going to be 5. So 1 is 5. 1 is 5. What an odd thing to say. Okay, what's 2 going to be? 2 is 191919, which is 10. We might be able to infer the rest of these if this pattern kind of persists. So if this is 20, I'm just going to go for it. Yep, 20. So 3 is 20. Which makes sense. Whoops. 5, 6, 7. 8, 9, 10, 90. Now it looks like maybe I'm off by 1. So it's possible that these values decompress on the other side. So let's figure that out. So 90 is E6, 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 which is 90. Let's see, 0, 5, 10, 20, 30, 2, 10, 3, 20, 4, 30, 5, 40, 6, 50, 7, 60, 8, 70, 9, 80, 10. Okay. Interesting. Let's find a middle value. I'm fascinated by the fact that we have all 11 numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But we're not getting all the way to 100. Let's see, 40, 70, 80, 90. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's why. Okay. Okay, there we go. Minor steps adds an extra one, which is just throwing me off. So, opportunity to do all of this again here, unfortunately. So it looks like all that's removed is it pulls out this 5 value and then is going to result in a shift. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is 100. Okay, there we go. So that's the mystery. So if we add, let's see. Gotcha. Okay, so this adds a minor, that makes a lot more sense. It adds this minor step between a range, whether that be 0 and 10. That one does nothing. 10 and 20, etc. So if you need to add just kind of like one more minor step, then that is what that does. In which case we could do this would throw everything off, but we can do a minor step and then change this to 10. And then that would give us the 11 values that we wanted with an additional value kind of indexed really low, which can be helpful when you have kind of like just really kind of like very nuanced little, cards that are just barely above the value, the zero value, the background value. So we're not going to mess with that right now because this is just one of many scales that we might try to implement over time. Okay. So that's actually, I think that's good. We have all the details that we need from that. I'm curious. I'm actually not going to dive into that at all. There's a lot going on there. It is nice though. I'm seeing this export tool, which is pretty cool. Resources, classic ColorBox. Oh, okay. I could have found that there. ColorBox article, all that kind of stuff. That's interesting. And then I can export this to JSON, which is very cool. And JSON, if you have to build for multiple, formats or multiple tools, is actually kind of like an interesting place to do it. I think there is a challenge in representing like 3-dimensional data with JSON, which, as you get into like dimensions, like you're gonna have like a foreground and a background, maybe like high contrast, low contrast, like those things all kind of like add up, and in JSON they look a little like convoluted. It's just like a lot of repeating stuff. So anyway, neither here nor there. So let's get going on this. Okay, we've got about a half an hour. I'm going to add a new Storybook file. Let's see. So I'm going to call this neutrals. Neutral colors dot stories dot mdx. Okay, I'm just going to copy all the boilerplate from another story. And again, we're still importing our just single colorway file for now. We'll just change this to neutral colors. And then for the title, we'll probably nest this. So we'll do this colors neutral, something along those lines. I'm not too picky about the specifics right now. Okay, great. So we have some neutral colors decided on in our notes. Now we just need to start applying those somewhere. Now, for immediately, I'm thinking about putting those on text or having those as text on the background. So we have this background color. It's already, on a white background for us. I don't have anything implemented yet that would be able to just kind of like switch our design for like, implementing a dark mode. So instead of focusing on that, I'm just going to go with what we have right now and just, implement all of these colors on a light scale. So for that, we need a canvas, we need a story. Actually, we don't need a canvas unless we want this to be copy and pastable. And at this point, we probably don't need it to be because it's just illustrating the various colors that we're going to have. We'll use a fragment because we're going to have lots of elements in here. And, I'll actually probably use a heading for this. So let's do something like H4 data heading. And this will be color 0. Color 1. So now these headings should all be the same size because we're using that data heading selector, which flattens everything out. And then color is open to suggestion. There's a custom property for data color on these heading selectors. So let's see what we got. So it is pissed, and it's because of these damn spaces in Storybook. Anytime you have a space in between two elements in a React example, it just does not like that. Actually, it looks like it might be something else. So let me see if I have all my tags closed appropriately. Pretty sure we don't need a canvas, but oh, you know what it is? It doesn't have a name. Name neutral. So I can actually take that out since I might represent different color palettes here. Now, this is actually, I'm going to further clarify this because it's 11 steps and it's on a linear scale. So we may have, different, like a 13 step or 17 step or 21 step, and have those on kind of like different gradations as we saw using the ColorBox thing. So let's see if we finally got our page. Yes. Now, if I click on that, we don't have an example yet. No preview, sorry. That's fine. Maybe this is where we need the canvas. Now, my understanding is that those are only for copy and pastable pieces of code, but oh, because I was on the canvas view, not the docs view. Okay, good. Yeah, so the canvas allows us to actually focus this one example, whereas the docs, we can use this markdown file to like actually communicate in prose throughout the whole thing. This is actually a really nice feature of that I really like about Storybook, being able to separate the docs, but then have these canvases for like the individual stories that you can focus and play with. Okay, cool. Now let's build up a couple examples. So we're gonna have color 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. All of those should show up. Okay, cool, no problem. Now we actually need to implement this one color scale. I'm going to go into our one CSS colorway file where we have our entire project up to this point. I think it's getting to a point where it probably will start peeling out these different, like kind of isolated entities into their own imports. So, but not today. So what we're going to work with right now is how we isolate these colors to a certain like a certain part of the document. So it's possible that we might want to have like various color scales, in which case, and definitely different color modes. So how do we like orchestrate all that? That is a question. I'm going to start. Let's just go super verbose. So let's make a selector, and we'll do this neutral color scale. And let's call this something like $11 linear. Let's just way over the top verbose about what's going on here. Okay, now from here we can actually copy in these color values. Okay, and then from there, we want to assign them to some custom property. And actually, I just deleted the kind of thing that would allow us to do that. I'm going to change this to a colon so that we can assign these as values. There's going to be some, and this will be, what will a custom property be? So it'll be, let's call this, could be like shade or neutral. Color neutral. I kind of like. Alternatively, you'd have like color red. And the nice thing about having this color prefix is that in your dev tools, when it's showing like a big block of all the colors, it would kind of bind these together, or bind your available colors together, as opposed to, you know, having red appear in like an red color appear in one section, and then like blue color appear in a different section. So all the colors would come together. So that could be nice. I generally don't like that orientation because it doesn't, color red is like Yoda speak. I don't always like that, but in this case, I think that there's probably the dev tools orientation of this is enough of a reason to do that. So yeah, so then I can just kind of copy, once I have that naming, I can copy all of that. So color neutral, and do that color. Now, one thing that is kind of cool is that you can see how this could be procedurally generated from a JSON file, right? So if you had an array, these are just the positions of those values inside of the array, which is kind of neat. That's the benefit of using the like 0 to 10 indexing. Obviously, you could map it to whatever you want, you know, when you're transforming it from JSON to, you know, CSS. But kind of having these order names keeps that relationship intact. Okay, 11. Yeah, I think that's good. Now, one thing to know about like data attribute selectors too is that this is going to be looking for an exact match on this text. So if we have any more than 11 linear or any fewer like attributes than 11 linear, it's going to exclude it from this selector. So I usually use a tilde, which gives us some options down the road. Oh, missing a bunch of semicolons. We'll get back to the tilde in just a second. So the tilde actually makes this operate exactly like a class attribute. So when you have a class attribute, and you know, you might have something like class, you know, first, second, third, and then all of your selectors are going to match on all of those. So if you have a, you know, a class that matches first, it's going to still match it, and second, and still going to match it. That does the same thing. So now if we have something that now has this class of, you know, 11 linear, it'll still work, versus if we didn't have that tilde and we just use the equals, then it always only has to be exactly this value. So just something to keep in mind. Let's see. So 11 linear. I'm just gonna go super verbose. 11 step linear. Doesn't matter right now. We're just screwing around. We're playing around, seeing what's out there. Not making any hard and fast decisions yet. Okay, cool. So let's jump back into our example and see if we can connect those colors now. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to move away from a fragment, a React fragment, and actually make this an element. This could be a div, it could be a section, I guess. Section seems maybe appropriate for this test. Who knows? Hey, Greg, glad you're here. Thanks for hanging out. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. I'm just kind of chilling, so glad you are here. So what did we decide on? It was data. Colorway.css. this is our selector. So I'm going to paste that in. Doesn't like it, so I did something wrong. So section, data, neutral, color, scale. Oh yeah, I can't do that. I just need to have an equals there. 11 stop linear. Okay, now nothing happened, which is to be expected because we're not actually applying these colors to these elements yet. Now you've seen me work in the past, and I really like to do this stuff inline first, just to make sure that it works, and then kind of augment that with some type of, selector based API. So we're gonna start with the inline part first. And we'll just add a style attribute. This is an object, and we want to target the custom property. So let's see, what was our custom property again? It was data, color, neutral, and then the number. Color, neutral, number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Let's see where that got us. Nowhere, because I didn't do it right. Now in this case, I need to actually say what I want the color to be. So this is an error on this side. I want color to be, and then we'll use the var. Oh my gosh, cannot type today. Okay, now still doesn't work. So now I'm curious. I'm not totally sure why this isn't working now. Could be some type of like load order issue. Who knows? We're going to jump in here and make sure that everything's tied up the way that it should be. So let's go into here. We're going to see color 1. What does color 1 look like? Var color. Okay. That's right. So because we're using a heading, data heading, we actually want to apply this to the other custom property. So let's do that on 1, and let's just make sure that it's working. Because this should theoretically be overriding that. I'm going to have to go down to one of these. Oh, this is a good example. You can see kind of how these available colors and data attributes will like present inside of the UI as like available colors. Okay. Oh, hey, so Greg asks, thank you for the question, Greg. Could you explain colorway in a nutshell? Yeah, so colorway is like over the last couple of months, I've just been streaming, honestly, just like a couple of thoughts that I have around building like design system tooling inside of like strictly CSS. And a lot of it is really like exploratory. The I have built projects based on this methodology, but I've not built them up from scratch. It's always been like there's been some like existing systems in place, and so it's really just kind of a place to explore kind of those ideas, but like on a totally like greenfield type of project, kind of exploring tools that I like to use to actually like determine some of these color scales and whatnot. And that's about it. It's really just kind of a fun project right now, and represents kind of ideas that I have about the way like CSS design systems could and should be architected. Yeah, I hope that that's kind of like a rough enough idea of what it does. Right now, it doesn't do anything because it really just kind of exists here. But if you wanted to check out some of the other parts of it, it's at what is it? GitHub.com/chantastic/colorway. And there's really not a lot there, but you can see some of the other projects there, or other projects that we've done. And then also like on YouTube, there's some other videos of streams, live streams like this that we've done as well. So if you need me to clarify any of that, I'd be happy to do that. Okay. Now I'm going to see why this isn't working. So first of all, so style seems to be working. It's applying the style. We're using the var. Is that getting understood? Yes, it is getting understood, because we can see that when we hover over it in our dev tools, that it's connecting to a value. So that's great. Perfect. However, it's not actually doing anything to the text. So we need to figure out why from this point forward. Now, let me see if I take out these data headings, if that changes anything. They don't have to be data headings. They could be something else. I was just trying to make them some type of block level element. You hit refresh, maybe. Okay. Yeah. My pleasure, Greg. Thanks for asking. Okay, so I want to make sure that these are all, so they're definitely in scope, right? Because this selector that we have here, can we hide that? Yeah, there we go. This selector that we've applied it to the root of this is now kind of cascading down some of these values, which we can use. We know that it's being connected because we see this. If we go over here, we can see that those map to the colors in this little handy dandy popover. We're just not seeing the color change. So why is that? If you see it, let me know, because I am super confused. Code 5. The rule is being interpreted. Let's change this to like red. Something super obvious. Okay, that does work. Pink works. Change the element. See if there's some weirdness going on there. Nope, that just changes that part of it. Let's go into compute it and see what's going on. So color, it's getting it from this dot. Okay, let's try something else. Let's take all of these. Let's remove the selector entirely. Okay, so Robin says, I think your HSL values are incorrect. Your S and L should be, oh my gosh, you're right. You're right. That stupid tool that I used did it another way. Yeah, Robin, that's absolutely 100% it. That is so funny. Okay, cool. So I'm going to change this back. So funny. I ran these through a whole processor and like it spit them out like this. So I didn't even question the output. Yeah, so this is going to be hue, and then this is going to be what is it? Saturation as a percentage. And then lightness also as a percentage. Okay, cool. All right. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, so we're seeing this. So now we're actually seeing the preview of the color here, which is great. Awesome. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So Robin's saying that it's possible that like 0, at least in this column, could be might not need a percentage. It could be totally valid without a percentage, and so then I just kind of got mixed up along the way. So let's go back over here, see if everything is. Oh my gosh, Robin, nailed it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I would have kept staring at that until I eventually just gave up, and it would have been super sad. So I appreciate you calling that out. Thank you so much. Okay, cool. So we have each 1 through 4. We have our little type scale right here. Now the cool thing about this is that we can take this off, right? And because we've named it in such a way, we could theoretically use multiple systems at the same time for either different pages or different parts of the page. So if we wanted to, have, if there was a, 17 step, what was it, cubic system, obviously that doesn't exist. So, if we're here, it's gonna, if we save that, it's not gonna work. But you can see how multiple systems could live side by side. Now, one of the benefits of this for me is that it gives you an opportunity or like a foothold in terms of like migrating from like one system to another. Or let's say that 11 turns out not to be enough, but you didn't realize that until like a year down the road. You could then make like an extended type of system for this as well, which is really nice. Consequently, you can also just put this in like, the body tag of your template. Maybe it's good for the rest of eternity and you only ever have to, have it in that one, on that one element, and that works great too. So I think kind of applying these types of systems to a selector has a huge amount of value. Okay, what other types of examples might we want to create? So we have all of these colors. I'm wondering now if we would want to like add some type of composition showing like how that color system would map to something like, surfaces. Where right now, I think in our code, it's really just this really kind of rudimentary or literally rudimentary type of thing where we're applying these colors directly. So how could that work? Well, let's kind of like take it as like, let's play with the notion of having some type of like cross pollination of like what a system would look like. So we have this color scale, but then how would that actually map to like kind of surface, values like we see here? Let's explore that for a bit. And then let me check on the time. Oh, shoot. You know what? Unfortunately, I can't explore that for a bit. I got to run back to work. So this is as far as we're going to get today, but I think we did make a lot of progress. We did talk about ColorBox. I'm going to bring that back over a little bit. Talked about ColorBox. There's a new tool for it, but I really find a lot of value in the old one, where we can kind of customize a color palette with the number of steps that we want to include, as well as the like color saturation, enjoy some benefits of some color theory that's already been thought out for us, and then kind of change the kind of relationship of the elements to each other inside of that scale using, kind of linear or various curve graphs. So Super cool tool. And then the rest of the time, we just basically implemented that into selectors that we could use into in our app. Um, so that's it. I feel like pretty good about this story, kind of like where we're at with this particular one right now. I like the naming of, color neutral and then just having it be a number. Again, that could align nicely to arrays. And then the selector, we can put this as edge as we need to for like just small parts of UI, or we can put it as like global as like putting it in one of our one or many templates that control the whole application or sets of pages. So that's all I've got for today. Let's jump back to Big Face. Hello. It's my big face. Anyway, hey, thanks for being here. If you like stuff like this and want to, participate more in kind of thinking through these types of like systems and CSS and all that stuff, I'm gonna try to do these on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you can subscribe. You can click on that bell, and then you'll get some type of notification. If you get those, you can tell me what they're like because I don't really know. And that'll tell you when I'm going live. So I think probably Tuesdays and Thursdays I'm going to try to start doing this and just kind of fleshing this out, kind of seeing where it goes. Because it's a lot of fun. I like thinking about this stuff, and I like the idea of having something that has all of the pieces that I like in a place that I can use them in other apps. So that's it. Thanks for being here. You're awesome, and I'll see you later. Bye.